Hello everyone, and this is our part 5th of socio-religious movements in 19th century India. That is our chapter 2. Previously we discussed Raja Ram Mohan Roy and Arya Samaj, okay, of Dayanand Saraswati. Now in this chapter particularly we will discuss Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, Jyotiba Phule and Mahadev Govind Ranade. Now, see, if we see the entire discourse of freedom movement or national movement in India, what the basic thing so far you have learned? The basic thing is every social or religious reformer is either trying or actually they are doing it. And what is that? They are trying to implement the modernity in society. Okay, they want our society to be modern. They wanted it. Okay, so now if we this is the first thing. Second is they have somehow each and every one of these social and religious reformers, each and every one of them were actually trying to bring modern institutions, reasoning, logic among body politic of Indian people, and they all want a kind of rational society. Bankim Chandra Chatterjee was certainly not an exception. Okay, during this period. Actually, we can divide Bankim Chandra Chatterjee's writing into part 1 phase and part 2 phase, means early writings of Bankim Chandra Chatterjee and the later writing of Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. These are the generally 2 phases of Bankim Chandra Chatterjee's writing. In his early days, what we can see, he was highly influenced by the theory or philosophy of Auguste Comte. Who was Auguste Comte? Auguste Comte was actually a positivist, okay, who wanted to have scientific understanding or scientific knowledge in short and very nutshell. I'm not going to tell you the theoretical debate of Auguste Comte in this video, but Auguste Comte wanted, being a positivist, he was in favor of logic or scientific understanding, and so on and so forth. So in his early days, Bankim Chandra Chatterjee was highly influenced by the ideas of Auguste Comte. And in his later writing, second phase for writing, we can see that he is seen as post-Enlightenment European rationality. We can see that he is actually supporting the post-Enlightenment irrationality which was found in Europe. We have discussed it, if you remember, the formation of a state, then the era of enlightenment in European society in our very early lecture in January. So that he was influenced by, in his later phases, he was influenced by this European rationality, that was post-enlightenment era of European rationality. Now what he found, actually, what was his finding? He identifies in the Indian society the lack of solidarity, number one, and he thinks that this lack of solidarity is the primary reason for the subjugation of India. Okay, if India is suffering, if India has so many issues, if India is conservative, if India is colony of some other nation and so on and so forth, it is just because of lack of solidarity among the Indians. That was the sole reason, according to Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. Now, for him, the diverse nationality living in this country who are separated by language, habit, race, religion, culture, okay, and so many types of diversity, that entire stuff actually have made national solidarity completely absent from this country. So according to Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, all these scattered structures of our society, in the name of language, in the name of, say, race, in the name of religion, in the name of caste, in the name of patriarchy, in the name of region, in the name of some other type of identity, it actually weakened the Indian society, and the national solidarity, the concept of national solidarity was completely missing because of this. And because of this, India as a unified nation, or Indian people as lack unity because of this, because of all these malpractices, according to him, which was found in India during that period. What is the solution then? If we say, or if Bankim Chandra is saying that no, this language or culture or various types of diversity and so on and so forth are actually the reason behind that, no, we are not able to build a national unity or solidarity. So what is the solution? So he says that British rule is an opportunity to discover our national solidarity. Why? Because he explained this in the sense that all issues which India is facing, actually we have to understand the culture of India first. Then we should go ahead with our agendas, or to make a solidarity among Indian people and so on and so forth. This was his idea. Now, he considered religion to be the most powerful weapon for political and moral awakening. For him, religion is the most powerful weapon, and he supported the British regime just to discover national solidarity and national unity. Why? Because if Britishers are here, then we will realize why should we unite against alien regime. So his support to British regime was actually multifolded. He supported it, the British regime, and he wanted Indians to be mobilized against Britishers. So that was his faith, that the people of India will be mobilized against Britishers. At the same time, he considered that religion is the most powerful and solid weapon for political and moral awakening of Indian people. So to meet this end, he tried to instill the faith that love towards humanity is the highest devotion, and love for one's country is the biggest duty of individual. For example, nationality, and the national pride, sense of national pride. So he wanted to, or rather he tried to instill all these qualities, or he wanted to see all these qualities among Indian youth and Indian people. Why? To have a national, or to discover the national solidarity. Right? Now, to some extent, we may support him, or we may say that he is actually taking one line. He is not taking the other line. But if we see that era of 19th century, Bankim Chand Chatterjee is somehow in his ideas wants to uplift Hindu religion and combined the idea that root of religious upliftment is political upliftment. It means if you are getting progress religious wise, you will simultaneously see the political progress. So for him, religion or religious progress or religious upliftment is a primary thing. Once we achieve this, then only we will achieve a political freedom. So he is also focusing on political freedom, okay, or political upliftment or political progress of Indian society. So somehow he wanted India to be free from their alien rule, and he wanted that there should be a kind of national solidarity and national unity among the body politic of the Indian masses, and that's why he wrote the famous our national song, that is Vande Mataram. Okay, so and his that song became the very famous now, and each and every almost freedom fighter sang this song to show the national solidarity against the Britishers, right? So in that sense, when he is saying to discover national solidarity or national unity, we have to meet religious upliftment and religious progress and so on and so forth. He tries to convey that religions and politics cannot be or should not be separated. So this was his idea, and again he was he was against the ill practices of Hinduism, and he clearly denounced the caste structure and the undemocratic patriarchy and so on and so forth. So this was his basic idea. Now second one is Jyotiba Phule. Now Jyotiba Phule hailed from a low caste, okay, and he knew the prevailing injustices in the name of caste or social hierarchies. Hierarchy means from top to bottom, okay. So that structure, that hierarchies, Jyotiba Phule actually faced, and he understood this very well. He tried to show Dalit communities of India the liberation path, the path of liberation, and summarized the the prevailing inequality among Hindu society or Hindu religion, and according to him, the unethical social system. Why unethical? Because it follows a kind of hierarchy, who is upper, who is lower, and so on and so forth. Jyotiba Phule was actually influenced by Thomas Paine, and he believed that equality of men and women should always be there. So it means, on the one hand, he is attacking the caste structure undemocratic caste structure of India, and secondly, he is against the patriarchal nature of Indian society. So he actually aggressively attacking both undemocratic notion of Indian social values. So in that sense, he by supporting Thomas Paine, he believed in the concept of equality, and that is more important at that time when talking about equality was a distant dream. Okay, so this was his idea. Now, if we see another sphere, he tried to give a vision of society which is free from Brahminical exploitation. Why? Because he believed that access to education should be given to all. Okay, number one. Number two, English education is the vital resources to be utilized. Okay, and every caste group should get modern education and should use the British structure of education and should reach a kind of emancipation against this oppressive nature of Hindu society. So he was against this Brahminical exploitation, and he considered the British rule as a blessing in the disguise because it has struck at the foundation of caste hegemony of the Brahmins. See, again I am repeating it. When Macaulay and Charles Trevelyan were discussing what should be the way India will get freedom from us. One way, quick revolution and we are gone. And second way is through social and religious and political reform. And we can put India in that way. And Britishers did the same. And many Indians, because of lying inequalities, because of real patriarchy, because of sati tradition, because of exploitation, because of various types of hierarchies, supported this idea of social and political reforms. So all these thinkers, including Jyotiba Phule, simply followed the way which Charles Trevelyan and Macaulay was discussing. Okay, so he criticized the Brahminical exploitation and simultaneously considered British regime as blessing in disguise because it was the foundation, or it was actually against the hegemony of Brahmins in Hindu fold. So he simultaneously he was opposing various scriptures, right? Why? Because of this Brahminical discourse and Hinduism, which was divided into upper and lower and various other caste groups, where according to Jyotiba Phule, you cannot find equality. The concept of equality is completely missing from this entire discourse. So he first opposed all these ideas, and he found that the Brahmins actually distorted the various smritis and shrutis just to rationalize their hegemony, and people started believing the caste Brahmins in India. So Jyotiba Phule actually, what Jyotiba Phule did, Jyotiba Phule, on the one hand, he was against caste structure of Indian society, He was against Brahminical hierarchies, number 2. And number 3, he wanted all the caste groups to have modern education introduced by the Britishers. And next, he was not against British regime in India because he saw it as the regime which can end the hegemony of Brahmins or upper caste in India, and lower caste will have a social and political reform. If not quickly, then slowly or someday, right? So his idea was entirely based on emancipation and awakening of lower caste groups and women, education of lower caste groups and women, abolition of ill practices which were prevalent among lower caste groups, and so on and so forth. So to pursue this task, he opened various schools. He talked about gender equality, and to meet this end, he opened various schools for girls. Okay, he supported women literacy. Okay, he established Satyashodhak Samaj. You will find various branches of Satyashodhak Samaj even today. It was established in 1873. Now, through this Satyashodhak Samaj, Jyotiba Phule and various volunteers extensively worked for girls' education, widow remarriage, and prohibition. Okay, for lower caste groups, for discrimination which lower caste groups were facing, women were facing. So they started, the volunteers and Jyotiba Phule started working through this Samaj established in 1873 for the upliftment of the downtrodden section of the society, to make them politically and socially aware individual, and to make them educated. So this was his entire discourse during pre-independence period. And to some extent, if we want to add something, he even went to the extent of criticizing various socio-religious organizations. For example, Prarthana Sabha, which he claimed, Jyotiba Phule claimed, that was used by the Brahmins to confuse between Dalits and Ati Dalits, okay, or Shudras or Ati Shudras. So he criticized Prarthana Sabha, and he said simply that Shudras and Ati Shudras, or Dalits and Ati Dalits, or backward communities and most backward communities are just terminologies to divide caste Hindus. Okay, and we must not be trapped with this type of identities, and all the downtrodden communities should behave as equal and as one, and they always should work for their own upliftment, okay, for their own welfare, for their own political awakening, for their own social awakening, and we will have an inclusive society in near future, if not now or if not early, then in near future. He also criticized Sarvajanik Sabha and Indian National Congress as well, because according to him, these organizations were monopolized by Brahmins and did not work for the interest of the lower caste groups. Jyotiba Phule simply claimed it many times that various organizations, including Indian National Congress, was not pro lower caste people, and lower caste people should mobilize themselves, should educate themselves, should awake themselves, should rise themselves, and by doing all these things, they can only see their own emancipation, because all of the organizations are actually controlled by the Brahmins, and he is criticizing the Brahminical values and Brahminical norms and so on and so forth. Keep this in mind, there is a difference between Brahmin as a caste and Brahminism as an ideology. Now, our next, or most probably the last in this video, is Mahadev Govind Ranade. Now, Mahadev Govind Ranade is a liberal thinker. Okay, he is known as liberal thinker, and he was instrumental in the establishment of Pune Sarvajanik Sabha and Prarthana Samaj. See, these two organizations was established by Mahadev Govind Ranade. He favored an interventionist state instead of laissez-faire state. It means he was supporting the British administration in India, which at that time was trying to be interventionist. Why he was supporting interventionist state and not laissez-faire state? Because India was certainly not a capitalist economy at that time. There was no concept of free market economy under British regime or before British regime. So he supported interventionist state. Why interventionist state? Because if a state intervene in the society, if a state intervene in conservatism of the society and so on and so forth, then because of this intervention, society will see a kind of change, a positive change. Okay, so this was his idea. He tried to capture the nature of a transitional economy, okay, which was passing from semi-feudal stage to a commercial order. Semi-feudal stage before the advent of the British, and commercial order when British were establishing their rule in India. So he supported, the second point is, in the second perspective, he supported the interventionist state and not the laissez-faire state. He also believed in the equality of all, irrespective of caste, gender, religion. He believed in individuality, and he simply did not want to discriminate by state or society on the basis of caste, religion, region, language, and so on, or gender, and so on and so forth. So Mahadev Govind Ranade was actually in favor of equality, and his equality was on the basis of social aspect and on the basis of religious aspect as well, because he says in the eyes of God, men and women and children are their children. So if men and women are their children, and who are we to divide men and women into the superior gender and inferior gender, and upper caste and lower caste, and Hindus and Muslims and Christians and Sikhs and so on and so forth. So he was of the view that God created men and women without making any discrimination. So we also must not practice discrimination. Now, it is evident that he was against caste system. Simultaneously, he was not against the Bhakti tradition or Bhakti movement which was going on at that time. the Bhakti Marg rejected the idea that Brahmins are creation of God and other castes should serve them, which was the idea which was prevalent or popular during those days. Bhakti Marg simply rejected this idea of Brahminical superiority and suggested lower caste groups to get themselves free from this psychology, number one, and to attain their salvation through faith and love. Okay, so this was the idea of Bhakti movement. Now, Ranade considered caste system as a blot in the Indian social order, simply a blot. Why? Because it invites discrimination, isolation, and the caste system is based on exclusiveness. So he was against caste system. He preached to establish fraternity and recognize the essential equality between men and women and between one individual and another. He also gave instances from Vedic ages and ancient India to establish equality between men and women. Okay. Ranade, the main emphasis of Ranade was the need for social and religious reform. But he always believed in the natural dependence of the social, economic and political sphere of society. This was his firm belief. He understood that institutions like family should be reformed first. Otherwise, there was no meaning to have political freedom or social freedom or so on and so forth, because we would fail to preserve it. So, first, reform should be from one's family. Second is, if we start reforming our family, then we will see a gradual process of transformation of society on the liberal perspective, from conservative to modern or something else, right? The ideas of that society would be based on liberty and equality. So obviously he was talking about modern society. He again was a strong believer in tradition, and according to him, he actually aimed to restore the dignity and freedom of ancient India. In his idea of elitism, he assigned greater roles to the educated class. He considered that educated class can bring massive changes in the society, and also he believed that this educated elite class would be the agent of change. See, he is talking about class and not caste. So educated class can be from any section of the society. It may be from upper caste or it may be from lower caste. So these educated people will bring emancipation in India socially and politically. So this was his entire idea of social and religious and political reforms, and he was against Jamindari system, okay, but he simultaneously included Jamindars in his fold, in his idea to for emancipation of the society, and considered them as elite. He also included middle class and educated middle class, obviously, to bring change in the society. And then, because of this class, someday or other, the scheme of extending self-rule can be justified. Otherwise, the scheme of self-rule will lose its meaning. Although his ideas was many times criticized by Jyotirao Phule and some other writers, because he somehow being very soft to Brahminical structure and Brahmanism, and he see emancipation in not in caste but in class, without realizing that the main bone of contention, the main hierarchy during that time, and the main social structure and the main social discrimination was entirely based on caste and gender. So with this perspective, many of his contemporary criticize him. Okay, so I ended this lecture here, and our next part would be on Ramakrishna Mission and Muslim reform movement, and I hope that would be our last lecture. Thank you very much.